Nafula was a woman who could sell an empty basket and make it seem like gold, yet all she wanted was the kind of figure that would turn heads like Wanja's. Nafula, with her sharp business mind and infectious smile, ran the most successful fruit and vegetable stall in the village. Her regular-sized frame was as slender as a reed, her arms and legs delicate, yet her skin still so succulent for someone who spent long hours under the sun. While her wit won her customers, it was Wanja's curves, round and bold, like the earth itself, that stopped hearts. One sunny afternoon, as Nafula arranged her perfectly ripe tomatoes, Romondi, the wealthy merchant Nafula had long admired, sauntered past Wanja's stall. "Your figure, Wanja, it's truly a blessing from the gods," he said, loud enough for Nafula to hear. Nafula's heart sank. She could almost hear the laughter in her own mind as she looked down at her plain figure. It seemed, however, that for Nafula it was only business, while for Wanja there was something more to it, pleasure. Every sale Wanja made seemed to carry an undercurrent of charm, a magnetic pull that Nafula couldn't help but envy. Men didn't just flock to her stall, they lingered, drawn not just by the produce, but by her very presence, her full figure that seemed to offer something beyond what Nafula could provide. Nafula felt like she was constantly overlooked. Even when customers bought from her, they drifted over to Wanja, spending the afternoon with her as though she were the very heart of the market. And that made Nafula's blood boil. What good was a sharp mind if no one noticed her when they were too busy admiring someone else? What she wanted most was a life outside the marketplace. The kind of life she imagined Wanja had in abundance, where the men didn't just see a vendor, but a woman worthy of more than just a transaction. Then came Zori. Zori was a woman from the city, with a face that gleamed like a freshly polished coin and an aura of mystery that seemed to follow her wherever she went. She sold beauty products, but it was more than just a transaction for her, it was an art. Her advertisements were as cunning as a leopard's strike, full of promises of transformation. "A new you, a better life," she'd say, her voice smooth like honey. Zori had long been a thorn in Nafula's side. At first, it was just the product sales that bothered her. It seemed like every other woman in the market was walking away with one of Zori's creams or oils, their figures somehow becoming fuller, more curvaceous. But then, Zori's whispers began to float around, even during Nafula's own transactions. "She's been helping Wanja, you know," Zori had said to one of the market women, with a wink. "Wanja, the woman with the perfect figure. You should see her now, those curves are even more perfect than before." Nafula overheard, and her heart sank. For days, her thoughts churned like a storm. What if she could have what Wanja had? What if, with a little push, she could finally have the life she dreamed of, one filled with admiration, attention, and maybe even the chance to win Omondi's favor? It wasn't long before Zori approached her, flashing that sly, calculating smile. "Nafula," she purred, "I know exactly what you need." Nafula's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "You've got the brains, but you're missing a little something else. Something that will make you irresistible, like Wanja." Zori's words slid into Nafula's mind like oil on water, smooth and enticing. "You see, even the most beautiful women need a little help sometimes. Wanja. She came to me for a special treatment. Now, her figure is the talk of the village." Nafula's breath caught in her chest. "You're saying she came to you?" Zori nodded slowly, her eyes glinting with secret knowledge. "Of course. And it worked wonders. I have a special remedy, Nafula. Just one cream, then you'll have what you've been dreaming of." That hourglass shape. Those curves that catch every eye. You'll be the one everyone admires, Wanja won't even compare. Nafula hesitated. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, her pride battling with her desire. But Zuri's words wrapped around her like a spell, clouding her judgment. How much? Nafula asked, her voice barely a whisper, as if she were afraid to hear the answer. Zuri smiled, knowing she had Nafula exactly where she wanted her. Don't worry, my dear. I'm offering it to you for a very reasonable price. The key to your future success. Just this cream, and you won't regret it. Nafula didn't even think twice. She handed over all of the day's sales and walked away with the promise of transformation in her hands. At first, Nafula wasn't sure what to expect. But the next few mornings, when she awoke, she felt different. The cream, it seemed, had worked. Her waist was broadening, her hips fuller, and most notably, her backside was rounder, fuller than she'd ever imagined. She was a vision. A new woman. And as she walked into the market, the attention she received was overwhelming. Men stopped in their tracks, women whispered behind their hands. Even Omondi's eyes lingered a little longer than usual. For the first time, Nafula felt like she was the center of the market. And it was intoxicating. But as the days passed, something strange began to happen. Nafula's backside never stopped growing, but so did her whole body. She was transforming into a whole different figure altogether, and the burden of having to worry about that gradually stole her radiant smile, the one that had always made her stall stand out. She stopped flashing her bright, welcoming grin, now consumed by her new self-afflicted problem. And worse for her, Zuri had disappeared since their last encounter. Back at the market, the customers came. Oh, they came, all right. But now they lingered around her stall, eyes glued to her curves and the abnormality of her bums. They spent money, sure, but the compliments, the admiration, seemed more focused on her body than the goods she was selling. Wanja was still there though, still full-figured and smiling, but her sales were surprisingly doing better now than before. And, to Nafula's dismay, Wanja's bums were still the same as before. How shocking. One more thing she had now noticed. The way Wanja was now getting praised more for her smiles, rather than her backside. The very thing that had won her the market's affection, the charm that had made her a favorite, was now her rival's greatest weapon. It's as though their fate had been swapped. Nafula could only watch on in despair and seethe inside. But Wanja's blessings was least of her problems. As the days turned to weeks, Nafula's new body became more and more a burden she could no longer carry. The change wasn't all glamorous, it came with an uncomfortable price. The new days came with more and more transformation. Now she was almost not recognizable, finding it difficult to sit her bums down. At first, it was a minor inconvenience. But soon, Nafula found she could hardly sit properly at all. Every time she tried to lower herself, she felt an awkward strain. She couldn't sit comfortably in a chair. She found herself leaning to one side, always balancing her weight on her left bum, as if the other side was too full to bear her weight. It became unbearable. She could no longer sit properly at her stall, and even when she tried to join traders' meetings, her discomfort made her stand out in ways she hadn't intended. The customers who had once been drawn to her new figure now found themselves put off, asking a lot of questions about what had happened to her. There were whispers, at first subtle, then more open, about how strange she looked, insanely plump, and always shifting and leaning to one side. Surely, These tragic episodes must come to an end someday, eh? In the end, Nafula was left alone. The fruits and vegetables in her market stall rotted and she ran out of business. She had stopped coming anyway because her inability to sit properly meant she was unable to rest properly as well. She spent her last days poor, lonely, and always in bed, her body deteriorated and her soul too tired to continue. A tragic end to a once promising life. Lovely viewers, whatever your charm, use it wisely. Don't let the desire to be someone else overshadow the unique beauty you already have. For chasing what you are not may just cost you everything you are.